On Valentine's Day a year ago, roses are red, violets are blue. No one's above the law, even when you think the rules don't apply to you. Happy Valentine's Day. She, of course, referring to Donald Trump. Our next guest using that tweet against her. No one is above the law, even when you think the rules don't apply to you. Letitia James. Florida Congressman and Florida gubernatorial candidate Byron Donalds is with us. Congressman, it's great to see you. Pretty ironic. Karma, payback, revenge, all of them apply here. Do you think the DOJ actually charges her?
Well, look, if it's clear that she violated the law and she was committing mortgage fraud, not to mention, as I understand it, if you're going to be the New York Attorney General, how are you claiming that you live in another state? That just doesn't work. And so if all these things pan out to be true, she should be charged. She was quick to charge Donald Trump, saying that he put fraudulent information on a loan application. Well, that's what she's accused of doing right now. And she also accused Donald Trump of saying that Mar-a-Lago is worth $18 million. I mean, we all know that was just stupid and a lie. So if they go through their investigation and they find evidence, probable cause, that she was committing mortgage fraud for her own benefit, of course she should be charged. That's the way our system of justice works.
It all happened in 2023. So that's when she falsified these records, allegedly. And that was the same year she put Donald Trump on trial. Do you have any concerns about her being married to her father? Is that something we need to look into?
Listen, I think everybody's got concerns about that one. That's just not something that everybody thinks is cool. I don't. It's just weird, to quote a former person running for the vice presidency that we won't talk about. But look, at the end of the day, this is what happens. You have these officials who want to go on these witch hunts while at the same time they're doing dirt behind the shadows, in the shadows. It's simply wrong. She should be held accountable like anybody else.
Boy. So we got to continue our coverage of the criminal investigations against Adam Schiff and Letitia James. Okay, the Democrats who claim that nobody is above the law, and now all of a sudden, when they're being held accountable for potentially breaking the law, in the case of Adam Schiff and Letitia James, you're talking about mortgage fraud, defrauding taxpayers, and also additionally for Letitia James, also denying the former president, now the president of the United States, his civil rights, okay, trying to weaponize the legal system against him in order to take down his businesses, right, in order to bankrupt the president. That is what Letitia James tried to do. And now the pendulum has swung the other way, and you have the mainstream liberal media and Democrats now claiming that, the system has been weaponized. Trump is going after his political opponents. But yet, for the last 4 years, they were telling us how this is impossible, right? It is impossible to weaponize the system against your political opponents, right? This is what they were arguing when Republicans were pointing at Joe Biden and Letitia James, Fannie Pack Willis, Alvin Bragg. Republicans, Trump, were pointing at them and saying, hey, that's what they're doing. They're weaponizing the system to go after their political opponents. Again, Democrats said that is a right-wing conspiracy, even though that's clearly what they were doing. Now, with President Trump in office, what you have is the president holding those people accountable for weaponizing the system because, like they told us, nobody is above the law, right? Democrats believe that they're supposed to be able to weaponize the system to try to go after their political opponents, and when they fail to do so, then they should just get away with it, right? Well, who cares if Letitia James tried to bankrupt President Trump, right? Who cares if Alvin Bragg tried to throw the president in jail? Who cares if Fannie Willis tried to do the same thing and the Biden administration? Who cares? Who cares, right? Just move on. You can't punish people for weaponizing the system against their political opponents, right? That is what the mainstream liberal media is now saying, right? This is what they're saying, okay? However, the reality is that, again, nobody is above the law, and Adam Schiff and Letitia James are about to find that out, okay? At least according to another Trumper, Michael Cohen, who went on MSNBC and silenced these soy boys on the network who did not really want to hear Michael Cohen basically declare that Letitia James and Adam Schiff are doomed.
Look at what he's doing right now, for example, with Tish James. Look at what he's doing with Adam Schiff. And I'm going to make another bold prediction here on
a lot of predictions at 8 o'clock in the morning.
There's a lot of predictions. Here, take these notes because, mark my words, politically, they're both doomed. All right? I'm telling you right off the bat, this is a political suicide for both. Tish James and Adam Schiff.
More of a political homicide.
Well,
they
yeah,
didn't do anything wrong.
but how are they going to be? How are they politically doomed if Senator Schiff comes from a blue state? Attorney General Tish James is here in a blue state. They are elected by the people. How are they doomed politically?
It'll be gerrymander. It will end up being somehow. They will end up being held
races.
Yes, but they will also be held accountable. Mark my words. They will be held accountable for the crimes that they are now looking at. That's Ed Martin who's looking at him. And I know so many people are going to say, "Oh my God, Michael Cohen is like bending the knee to Trump." No. What I'm doing is I'm actually telling you the reality. We could talk to each other all day long and we can say, oh, I have 1 million followers, you have 1 million followers. It's the same million followers. 77 million Americans ended up voting for Trump. Mark my words, Ed Martin, the Department of Justice, Pam Bondi, they will figure out exactly how to go after Adam Schiff, how to go after Tish James for these mortgage violations. And they
alleged mortgage violations.
Alleged, yeah. Correct. Yeah. And they will be held accountable. That's my next prediction here on your show. And I know that I'm right, because if there is a signing of a box which is wrong, and trust me, I know, I went to prison. One of my charges was on my HELOC. I had a low mortgage onto it. I had 80% equity. They held me accountable for a HELOC violation. Theirs is much worse. And rest assured, allegedly, right. So let's go one step even further here. When you have the courts on your side as well, what chance do you have of success? It's why I turn around and I say, doomed.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. That was pretty amazing. Okay. Those MSNBC soy boys, you can tell they were in disbelief. They're like, we can't believe that Michael Cohen is dropping a little bit of truth serum here on MSNBC. Something that's rare, right? Truth on MSNBC, extremely rare, where he basically says that, yeah, these aren't nothing burger crimes here, right? Allegations. Like, some of the stuff these people are being accused of is worse than what Michael Cohen got convicted of. Like, for example, bank fraud, right? Misleading banks about the value of his assets to obtain loans. Yeah, to me, sounds kind of like what Adam Schiff and Letitia James did, right? When you talk about these mortgage fraud allegations, you're talking about misrepresenting whether your home is a primary or a secondary home, whether you actually live in a home in order to obtain favorable loan terms, right? When you're talking about getting federal loans. Yeah, I mean, we've had regular, normal people convicted for some of the same things, if not lesser things than what Letitia James and Adam Schiff allegedly did, right? But again, according to the same people who claim that nobody's above the law, all of a sudden when it comes to Democrats breaking the law, now all of a sudden they are walking that back, right? All of a sudden now it seems as if what they really meant is that nobody's above the law except Democrats, because for whatever reason, MSDNC hates the idea of Democrats being held accountable for their crimes. Again, it's funny how that works. I want to react to another group of individuals who also hate accountability, which are black liberals, okay? Roland Martin show where these people are going to boo-hoo, whine, and cry racism over the Trump administration, the Trump DOJ investigating Letitia James and also Adam Schiff as well, too. So let's get into it.
Here's that Republicans, Biden weaponized the DOJ. Nobody has weaponized the DOJ and the federal government like Donald Trump the first time and now this time. They are gross, disrespectful, shameful hypocrites.
Well, yes, but you're dealing with a criminal enterprise here, to quote our brother, Dr. Greg Carr. This is exactly what it is. This is stuff out of totalitarian dictatorship country. So you have Donald Trump, who's upset about the civil lawsuit that Tish James filed against him for when it came to his taxes and stating the values of properties. And that information actually came from Michael Cohen. When Michael Cohen testified in front of Congress before he went to prison, inflating the values of properties to get loans, but deflating the values of properties when it comes time to, pay taxes, things of this nature. So she wins that lawsuit. Trump owes about $500 million now in that lawsuit. So now they come up with this type of investigation dealing with a mortgage and then also claiming that Tish James violated Donald Trump's civil rights. If this is not the height of caucasity, because you got Donald Trump violating black people's civil rights, you had Donald Trump, his second day in office, revoked affirmative action, Executive Order 11246, trampling on black people's civil rights. And then now they want to claim that Tish James violated his civil rights. So this is more of the white grievance coming from the Trump administration. This is what they're doing. They refashioned the civil rights department in the Department of Justice to focus on white grievance, things of this nature. And this is something Donald Trump campaigned on. So this is more nonsense. So hopefully Tish James is successful in this. Hopefully Adam Schiff is successful. But I just got to say this. I don't mean to be petty, but I bet Adam Schiff is maybe regretting jumping out and calling for Joe Biden to drop out of the race. Because remember, Senator Adam Schiff was jumping on MSNBC saying that Joe Biden should drop out of the race after the bad debate and the poll numbers and things like this. He may be regretting that now.
All right. So I think that Roland Martin has severely decreased the quality of his guests, right, that he brings on. Not that they were great, high-quality people in the first place, but wow, he's really digging in the bottom of the barrel here, right, when it comes to guests. First and foremost, Trump has not taken away any civil rights from black people. That affirmative action is not a civil right, okay? You don't have a right as a black person to get preferential treatment based off your race, okay? We have this thing called the Equal Protection Clause, right? Again, we're supposed to be treating everybody equally in this country, right? Which is clearly something that black liberals don't want. Also on top of that, furthermore, notice how these people, right, when they talk about Letitia James and the allegations against her, whether that's on CNN, whether that's on MSNBC, any of these liberal news outlets, notice how they never get into the details. They just talk about it from the perspective of Trump is weaponizing the system, not from the perspective of whether or not she actually committed a crime. Notice how they're not engaging in that argument. Why are they not engaging in that argument? Because that's the real argument. Regardless of whether or not you believe that the system is being weaponized, right? Which, by the way, these are the same people. When it came to Fani Willis, totally fair. Jack Smith, totally fair, right? Alvin Bragg, totally fair. Letitia James, totally fair, right? All of the things they concocted against Trump, totally fair, totally legit. None of these people had questions about whether or not the system is being weaponized, right? But regardless of that, the argument really is, did she commit a crime or not? Did she commit a crime by misrepresenting her primary residence on mortgage documents? She signed a power of attorney, a legal document, unequivocally stating that she intends to live in the Virginia property. That is her primary residence as the Attorney General for the state of New York. Not just that, but she's also accused of misrepresenting how many units she has in one of her properties, her real estate properties, for benefits. She also claimed to have married her father. We're not talking about a one-off thing. We're talking about a pattern of behavior to suggest that Letitia James lies on documents, on legal documents, on financial documents, in order to get favorable loans and tax treatment. That is what we're talking about. We're not talking about whether or not it's racist. We're not talking about whether or not the system has been weaponized against her. What we're talking about is whether or not she actually committed a crime. Is there enough evidence to suggest she actually committed a crime? I think there is. I really do. I actually think that Letitia James is going to get held accountable. Now, again, I wouldn't be shocked if nothing happens, because a lot of times nothing happens. But in this case, I do believe that the evidence is pretty open and shut here, right? I mean, we have concrete evidence. I mean, we have her signatures on the documents, okay, showing that she signed off on this, stating something that was not true, okay? And she got a favorable loan because of it. So just understand, these people have no defense of Letitia James when the defense is Trump is racist and he's going after her because she's a black woman, which really makes no sense in the context of the same conversation also admitting that, well, Trump is going after Adam Schiff, who is not a black woman. He's a white man, which means that this is not about racism. It has nothing to do with race. It has everything to do with, first and foremost, these individuals. There is strong evidence to suggest that they may have committed crimes, right? That is what all of this really has to do with, right? With the fact that they committed crimes, and because nobody's above the law, they should be held accountable. But if you're going to try to push the narrative that these investigations, these accusations are illegitimate, the race narrative is not the narrative that should be pushed here, right? The narrative should be, well, the DOJ is weaponized and that this is political. And the reason why we know this is because she did not commit a crime for X, Y, and Z reasons, right? But yet, pay attention. They're not saying that. They're not telling us why is Letitia James innocent, right? Why is it that the evidence that we have is not legit, okay? Or that Letitia James did not commit mortgage fraud. They're not saying that, right? They're not saying that at all because they can't argue against the actual evidence. They're not bringing up the evidence. They're not actually really trying to discuss the reasons why she's facing these investigations.
Mm-hmm. Folks, before I go to Raven, Tish James, she addressed these attacks on her, and she says, Donald, I ain't scared of your ass.
My mission is clear. I'm focused. I'm prepared. I'm ready. I've been trained by the best. I went to Howard University that overturned legal segregation in this country. I've been taught in those classrooms where Thurgood Marshall once taught. I'm not afraid of no president. Donald Trump, we're ready for you. We're coming for you. We're standing up for you. We're fighting on. We're not going down silent. Victory, my friends, is clear. It's now. And I'm not waiting 4 years. I'm waiting 2 until a speaker by the name of Hakeem Jeffries comes to bring us some rest. Come on, ladies. It's up to us. We saved this democracy before. We'll save it now. Let's go.
Letitia James ain't going nowhere but to jail, right? She going to jail. I really do think they're going to get her, bro. I really do think there's no way. I think there's no way over the next 4 years they're letting Letitia James continue to walk unscathed, right? I just don't see it happening. I just don't see it, man. I just don't. I'm just telling you right now. I think her days, okay, not facing accountability are numbered, okay? I'm telling you, the Trump DOJ, I think they're going to get her, right? I'm with Michael Cohen on this one. I think that they're definitely going to be held accountable, 100%.
Raven, the shortened version of that is Donald Trump, bring your ass.
Nobody can convince me that Roland Martin is straight, bro. Not at this point. Not as much as this dude seems to like talking about asses, right? I mean, what's up with Roland Martin and ass? I mean, look at his face, bro. Look at his face at the thought of Trump's ass. I mean, has anybody seen a man get so excited about talking about another man's ass as Roland Martin, right? He just has an obsession with it for whatever reason.
You say what we say at home. So you're right. When you're sitting opposite of Scott Jennings, you got to jump in his ass. You got to jump in his ass. Jump in his ass. His ass. You got to push back immediately. Jump in his ass.
Yeah, ain't no way this dude is straight. I'm telling you, no way. No way.
I'm so here for the energy. Yes. I mean, let's call this what it is, right? Trump is mad that a highly qualified, highly accomplished, no nonsense Black woman held him to account for his gross misconduct. It's really that simple. We've seen that he clearly thinks he's above the law. He thinks that he can be a king in a country where we don't do kings. He thinks that he can just be out here defying Supreme Court order rulings and attacking his political opponents like he's above reproach or critique. And she's saying that's not going to fly. And I'm so here for it. I really think Trump's response in this situation is like if misogynoir, toxic masculinity, and like white fragility had a baby. Like that is emblematic of how he's moving in this situation. And you know what his response also tells me? He thinks that criminality can't map onto him. And I think this is really just reflective of how people think about criminality within the context of the United States. Criminality from the top down is seen as the status quo. Criminality from the bottom up is seen as criminality as opposed to resistance, right? And he really thinks he's above the law. He thinks he's above reproach. And she's saying, no, that's not the case. It's not going to fly, and you're going to be held to account. And I hope that we can all rally behind her to make sure that that comes to fruition.
Yeah, rally behind mortgage fraud, right? These are the idiots on the Roland Martin show, right? Let's rally behind mortgage fraud because she's a black woman and she's a Democrat, right? Because all of this is happening because of racism, right? To me, it sounds like these individuals are the ones that believe that certain people, based off their skin color, should be above the law, should never be held accountable for their actions. I mean, again, Letitia James campaigned on going after President Trump, right? Like, again, this is, again, open and shut, right? It was in your face, right? It was in your face weaponization. She told you, hey, I'm going to go after President Trump. And she went after him by digging up dirt on him for things having to do with subjective business valuations and trying to value your properties in a good light, which is something that any good businessman, any good real estate investor, any good investor would do. The bank did its own due diligence. There was nobody that was harmed. The banks were like, yeah, we'd be willing to do business with President Trump again, right? We didn't care about him, quote unquote, lying to us about his properties because we did our own due diligence, right? Again, there's no real precedence, right, for what Letitia James did in regards to going after President Trump, especially the judgment that was levied against President Trump. And that showed up even during the appeals court hearing.
May it please the court, Judith Vale for the New York Attorney General's office. All of the defendants repeatedly violated...
Ms. Vale, can you identify any previous case in which the Attorney General sued under Executive Law 6312 to upset a private business transaction that was between equally sophisticated partners where the supposed victim had the ability and legal obligation to discover the allegedly misrepresented matters by conducting its own due diligence, where the supposed wrongdoer advised the supposed victim through written disclaimers to conduct its own due diligence and to draw its own conclusions, where the alleged misrepresentation almost entirely concerned inherently subjective valuations of properties and businesses.
Yes.
And where the victim never complained about any fraud in the transactional losses from it. Because I've gone through the cases which you've cited, and all of them always involved the consumer protection aspect. It involved protection of the market.
Oh, several responses.
And I want to add to his question, and little to no impact on the public marketplace.
Well, maybe I'll take that first, Your Honor.
AG Lefkowitz over the years. And when I went back and read the bill jackets, the common thread was always we need greater power. The AG needs greater powers as the people's lawyer to protect consumers, civil rights, and the environment. And so again, with that sort of historical backdrop to this law, how do we draw a line or at least put up some guardrails to know when the AG is operating well within her admittedly broad sphere of 6312, and when she is going into an area that wasn't intended for her jurisdiction?
Yeah, so the New York Appeals Court appeared to be skeptical of Letitia James and her case against President Trump. Now, does that mean that they're going to completely overturn it? I don't know, right? But again, I wouldn't be surprised at the very least if the judgment is reduced significantly, like the penalties are reduced significantly for the allegations. Regardless, I think that everybody can see that that was political, okay, in nature. And I don't want to live in a world where it's not okay to give your opponent a taste of their own medicine, right? Democrats believe they should just be allowed to do whatever. Doesn't matter what it is. They should be allowed to weaponize the system against their political opponents, but they're not supposed to be held accountable for the crimes that they commit, right? That, oh, it's unfair. Now you want to cry foul when you're being held accountable, when you ran around telling everybody that nobody's above the law. Nah, I'm not living in a country like that. So if these people are upset, they're mad, hey, they need to be upset and mad with Democrats for starting this, right? Democrats should not have opened up this can of worms. So, hey, you reap what you sow. Let me know what you got to stake. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.